We were talking about tribal knowledge. Initially, when you look at tribal knowledge, you think of tribal knowledge as how hunter-gatherers survived in the wilderness with bows and arrows against the fear of survival in those terrible conditions. But rather, we look at tribal knowledge as the sum total of the information in a corporation that is all the information, good, bad, accurate, inaccurate, all of that information. And when we try to get that information, the tribal knowledge, know-how, into play in a company, it sometimes needs some encouragement because there's a lot of fear of reprisal. If somebody introduces an area or an idea that might be challenging somebody, there's the fear of reprisal issue comes into play. So we protected that by trademarking no blame. No blame is a way to keep ideas protected from difficult managers. Let me give you an example of how that all worked. I was working at a company that had about 150 employees, and we were delivering what we called the war on waste to those employees, and we had broken up the teams of 4 to 6 people, and we had everybody working diligently on their projects. In one team, as I came into the one room, there was one team just wasn't doing well at all. They weren't talking, they were sitting back, just nothing was happening. So I went up to the team and asked what was going on, and of course the unofficial leader basically said, look, we can't agree on anything. We don't see any big problems that we're working on. I said, hold it 1 second. Does anything piss you off when you come to work? In other words, is there something in the work that you do on a daily basis that pisses you off? And the guy says, yeah, I'll tell you what, rush orders piss me off. And I said, what's a rush order? He said, well, one of the managers or foreman or somebody comes in and says, we got this rush order, came in from this important client, we need to rush it through, so tear down that current job you're running, put this new one on, run it through, and get it out so we can get it back to the customer in time. So that used to piss me off, and it pissed me off not because I couldn't do it, it was because after I did it, the jobs would just sit there. And they might sit there a week, 2 weeks, even 3 or 4 weeks before they got into play for the next step in the cycle. So right about that time, this is funny because right about that time the CEO came in. Now this was a great moment for him to show some leadership and to sort of work with the team in a positive way to address a problem that was bugging this one particular individual. So they explained to the CEO what was going on, and the CEO said, well, look, I think we solved that problem about 2 months ago. And the guy slams his hand down on the table and he goes, no, you didn't. You may have solved it up at the executive levels, but you didn't solve it down at my level. I'm still dealing with that problem. For 2 months I've been dealing with that. I've been dealing with that for 4 or 5 years. It's a problem. So he said, let's go out and I'll show you. And so he takes a ruled tablet out to the shop floor with the CEO and the other members of the team. They come back in about 15 minutes with this tablet filled with orders red tagged out on the shop floor that hadn't been done. It turns out that the solution to this particular problem was reasonably easy and was reducing the time it took for setups, but the cost to the company up to that point was about $500,000 a year in time to do setups twice and to rush orders through, and just the wasted time of setup. So that whole thing amounted to about $500,000 of costs per year. So what happened is the CEO was now behind this project. He made it happen. It worked out great, and he showed great leadership by allowing the tribal knowledge to play, and all of the employees got excited about their contribution to helping solve a problem that was bugging this particular individual. And it turned out it irritated everybody. But that's a good example of how tribal knowledge comes to play in a corporation.